What's up, Womack Nowstalgia? Dave here with a review of Joji's fourth album, Piss in the Wind. What a great title. You know, it really harkens back to Joji's past life as a YouTuber with a comedic style. Obviously, he's had such a rapid rise and reinvention as a public figure. I never really expected him to get nearly as successful as he has. Of course, I've been paying attention to Joji once he eventually became known as Joji for a while now due to his association with 88 Rising. This new album, Piss in the Wind, is in fact Joji's first album since leaving 88. He's now signed to Virgin Music Group, which is part of the Universal Music Group umbrella, now on one of those majors. We can kind of read between the lines. It seems like Joji felt he had outgrown 88 Rising, and I can understand that point of view given the massive success he's found off the strength of his last album, Smithereens, which came out at the end of 2022, a bit over 3 years ago at this point. His song Glimpse of Us, which, you know, was the big breakout out of Smithereens, that song's up to 1.7 billion streams on Spotify, and that song was like a massive hit right away. That really feels like the flashpoint for the Joji level up commercially. Like now, you know, his last tour, he did arenas. He's going to do arenas again. Like he's really become a really massive artist. And now even a lot of his catalog is really performing well, you know, on streaming. Slow Dancing in the Dark has 1.6 billion streams on Spotify. That was from the first record. Truly quite the impressive rise, given those humble beginnings. Joji's fourth album, Piss in the Wind, is certainly welcome, given the 3+ year wait since the last record. The album is only 45 minutes long, but it's packed with 21 songs, as most of these songs are pretty short tracks, under 2 minutes long. At times, a lot of these songs feel more like ideas versus fully formed songs. Some additional editing probably would have worked out for this, because they're just some songs too that sound a bit more samey. Despite all that, when Joji's at his best on this album, his ability to modulate his voice and do these different vocal effects really pop, and that kind of unique texture that he has with his voice, especially when there's a little bit more bass in it, really lends itself to some great vocal melodies. There's also some cool moments on this with really impressive production, whether it's the distortion on lead single Pixelated Kisses or the drum pattern on Strange Home. Overall, I think Joji does sound a bit more reserved on this album than he has in the past. To me, his sound on Nectar is still my favorite version of him, but if you pick your way through Piss in the Wind, there's definitely a lot of cool moments that will stick around, but there's also some fluff to get by. Starting off with that first track, Pixelated Kisses, you know, that single came out way back in October. I think it's a really dope beat just because it's so bass heavy. It's reverb to hell and back, frankly. It's a short track, but it has some really great vocal melodies. You know, I think Joji's really playing within that range quite well. Also cool that this song actually got a Yeet remix in December, because the beat really sounds fresh and right for Yeet in his normal mode. I think the remix is kind of superfluous, but it's still kind of a cool nod to see them collab. The next song, Cigarette, I also quite like. I think the tempo pickup from Pixelated Kisses, the Cigarette, is really great. I think Joji's really gliding on these drums and these subtle keys underneath as well. Really cool song. A lot of these songs, they're really short, right? They only have like one little idea. You know, you loop through it a few times and then the song is over, right? So like a lot of these songs, it's hard to give them like a fully formed endorsement just because they're so brief. You know, a song like Last of a Dying Breed, I like the fast tempo, but Joji's ethereal singing just never doesn't really get there all the way. Love You Less, I think that guitar riff, frankly, is very reminiscent of Joe's End of Beginning. I think the vocals are very rich on the outro. I think that's a great example of like Joji giving you a little bit more texture with the voice, which he does less than I'd like on this album, frankly. Love Me Better, I think production-wise, is a bit of a breakbeat almost, which is a bit of a surprise. I think some fun vocal melodies here. The deeper vocals in particular are very great. A Piece of You with Giveon, honestly, not quite enough there for me. You know, I think vocally this song just kind of misses the mark. Hotel California, I like the acoustic. I think the hook's pretty good as well. Tarmac, this one's short but pretty sweet. You know, I think the drums are cool. The one vocal melody here is pretty nice. Get a bunch of samey songs, right? I think this is when the album starts to kind of fade a little bit. But Fade to Black, speaking of fading, Forbats feature out of nowhere. Where's Forbats been since he exploded a few years back? Song's just fine, frankly. Sojourn, though, I like this one quite a bit. I think this distorted beat is super cool, harkening back to Pixelated Kisses. This is the best chorus on the whole album quite easily. It's a fully formed song. I think this song is great. Rose Colored is an official collab with Yeet, following that remix. It doesn't make the album. I think this song is awesome. I love the cool groove of the drums. I love the way Yeet drops in and the beat basically picks up and becomes a normal Yeet beat. And then when Joji comes back, he uses more vocal effects to kind of match Yeet's delivery. I think it's a pretty cool song. Silhouette Man, I think the deep voice here from Joji is really awesome. I love the drum tempo. The vocals then kind of get to a higher pitch as he kind of changes up throughout the song. And if this was a little longer than 90 seconds, I think the song could have really blossomed. Fragments, interesting distorted horn here. Strange Home, as I mentioned, great beat. I love the way the bass kind of stops and starts. I think it's really catchy. I think Joji's vocals also fit this really well. This is an amazing vibe. I really like this song. And then this song Dior is a closer. Ultimately, Joji to me is a hard artist to pin down. We don't even really know that much about him, at least about him recently, right? Post YouTube. He does, I think, a good job of staying in his lane and not overexposing himself vocally. But sometimes he gets a little unambitious vocally, and it's a bit too ethereal. It's a bit too airy, and there's just not enough there to really add to the song, and that is especially paramount in songs that are pretty short, that it's not enough time to really grab you. On the other hand, when he does have moments where his vocals, I think, are really fully formed and the mix is really impressive, he does some modulation, he gets a bit deeper in his singing, what he's a baritone, I think. When those moments happen, they're really noticeable, and I think that can lend itself to some of his really catchy songs. So I'm just happy he's back. I think it's a broadly successful album, albeit I would have trimmed this down quite a bit. Let me know, though, what you think of Joji's fourth album, Piss in the Wind. What song did you like most about it? And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.